Hello, welcome to AEA Insight, where we engage industry experts shaping Ghana's energy future. My name is Sandra Amakwe, and I'm your host for this episode. Today, we're privileged to have been joined by an energy expert who started his career as a young engineer with the Volta River Authority. He rose through the ranks to become the acting chief executive of the company. He later veered into private consultancy, where he consulted for different countries in the power sector. He found his way back into the public sector to become the Chief Executive Officer for the Bui Power Authority. I must say that he is the man behind the Bui Dam project. I'm happy to have been joined by Engineer Jabesh Amissah-Arthur. He is the managing partner for Arthur Energy Africa. He is here to share with us the lessons, the achievements, and advice for our young engineers with the decades of experience he has in the power sector. Mr. Jabesh Amissah-Arthur, welcome to AEA Insight.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm feeling fine. Thank you.
So let me start. That's a long, want to tap into your experience. It's been how many years in the power sector?
Probably we are approaching 46 years in the sector.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Congratulations there.
Thank you.
Then there's so much to share with us today.
Well, I hope that there's something valuable in there to share. Yeah.
So let me start. What's actually inspired you to become an engineer?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that from very early,
Okay.
I must have had the inclination to do that. I remember when I was very young, there was a time when there was road construction going on in my area.
Okay.
And I wouldn't go to school. I would rather follow the bulldozer around. And I remember very early on, I had learned how to, without sitting on the bulldozer, I had learned all the controls, how they were operating it. And I was fascinated by it. I had to be forced to go to school, to stop doing that and go to school.
Wow.
And then from then, it just grew. I was following, I did a lot of following. I followed mechanics who were, at the time, we were living in Akimodan.
Okay.
And there was a borehole that was delivering water, and there was a team that will come with this borehole drilling team. And I'll follow them, and I'll know everything they are doing, helping them with their tools, making their tools for them, and so on. And I learned what they were doing and understood everything they were doing. Then later on, my father's car started developing problems, and he'll bring mechanics to the house.
Okay.
And I'll be helping the mechanics, and through that, I learned everything there is about the car.
Ooh.
So this is all before I even went to Fanspim.
Okay.
So I knew that this was a field where I was comfortable.
Okay. So I would say that the inspiration came from you, from your childhood experience.
Yes. I think that all the things I learned just made it natural for me to go into engineering and to go into mechanical engineering. Yes.
Okay. So you are a mechanical engineer.
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask this: what has been your significant lessons you have been able to gain throughout your experience with the power sector?
The experience I've gained is immense because I've had the privilege of doing so many things and trying so many new things and being the first in many, many areas. The things I've learned are many. Because I started, first of all, I was assigned the first few months to a vehicle workshop in Akosombo where they repaired all VRS vehicles.
Okay.
And then I moved to the powerhouse where I worked in the Akosombo powerhouse for a while. And then I moved to Pong for the construction of Pong and then later for the operation of Pong. And there's a lot that I've learned. But one of the important guiding principles that I learned, it came as a coincidence. You know, when I was on the shop floor with everybody else in the vehicle workshop and in the Akosombo powerhouse, and they used to talk a lot about the engineers who had passed through there in the previous years.
Okay.
And they will talk about each engineer and how he was, whether he was good, whether he was bad, whether he was lazy, whatever he was. And they'll say it freely, and everybody will compare notes, and they'll reach a consensus. Or this engineer was useless. This one, he used to spoil things. This one, he used to do this. And that had a big impression on me. And I decided that I will want these people to talk about me in a different way when I'm not here. And that really, it was a very simple thing, but it really changed how I conducted myself.
Okay.
And the end result was that it was a conscious decision on my part that anybody I worked with should have a good story to tell about me when I was not there. And that has made a big difference in the way that my career has progressed. Because the fact is that I also rationalize that you will never be able to meet as many people as the 10 people around you who worked around you. When they give witness of your competence, nobody can challenge that. And so that was a very important. I think that it's good that everybody adopts that you have to conduct yourself in a way that you would like those who have worked with you to talk about you when you are not there. And they are your best advocates or your worst advocates, depending upon the experience that you gave them working with you.
In short, your colleagues are your brand ambassadors.
Exactly. And not just your colleagues, your subordinates, your superiors. Their words go much further than you can ever go. So that is how I reasoned it, and I conducted myself exactly that way, and it has been exceedingly beneficial to me.
When you started, did you envisage that you were going to be once the acting CEO of the company?
No, I actually didn't. I was just happy to be doing the work and to be working well and to be known to be good at my job. That was foremost on my mind. But yes, at one point, I had a conversation with one of my very good friends. And it was just a passing conversation. And he hasn't forgotten it, and he tells the story every time. Okay. We were, I think we were just doing national service, and then we looked at the age profile of the engineers ahead of us. And then we concluded that, look, if we stayed in this company and we didn't misbehave or get sacked for any reason, just by question of age, all the engineers ahead of us will retire before us, and we will assume control of the company.
Okay.
But that was just a passing comment. It was not a driving force in my career at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would say would be your major achievements at the Volta River Authority?
Without doubt, I think that my most fulfilling achievement was the extension of electricity from, at the time, this was in about 1985, 86, the electricity only stopped at Kumasi.
Oh, okay.
And I led a project that extended the electricity from Kumasi to the whole of Ghana. And I think that without doubt is the most fulfilling in my professional career.
That was what year?
At the time.
What year?
In about, I think it was 1986.
Okay.
Myself and about 4 others, I think 2 other engineers and 2 finance people, we were tasked to write a feasibility report on how we could extend electricity to the north and provide the justification. So they gave us 3 months, and we did that. And once we have done that, the management of VRA then brought in African Development Bank to come and look at the work we had done to see if there was sufficient justification to give us financing. Long and short, they came and they gave us financing to go from Kumasi to Bronga Hafo, full stop. Then later, I was somewhere else when I was asked to join a team at the World Bank to again explain to them the economics and the justification for taking the electricity to the north. So we went to Washington and did that. And World Bank agreed and gave us money to go all the way to Tamale and Bolga. And then we came back and I was appointed the office engineer for this project. And we did this work and a very accelerated schedule. Between 1987 and 1990, we had achieved that. And it was very fulfilling for me because we were there in Sunyani when the first night that we connected Sunyani to the national grid. And it was exciting.
Wow.
And a year after, I went back to Sunyani.
Okay.
And I could see the difference between Sunyani that was before the grid and Sunyani after the grid, and it was unbelievable.
Wow.
Sunyani, Techiman, and so on, they just bloomed. And it's fulfilling because when I get there and I see how Sunyani and Techiman are bustling now compared to what we had before then, I feel fulfilled that I played a part and a good part in that project. That's probably one of my most fulfilling.
Looking at the region now, do you think enough investment has been made in the power sector for power supply in that region?
Well, I look back at that project and the one part that I feel regretful about is something we did not pay enough attention to on hindsight.
Okay.
You know, when we were doing this work and justifying the project, we assumed that you just have to take electricity to the communities and the communities will know what to do with it to make economic use of it and get the benefits.
Okay.
And so we didn't pay attention to the uses and promoting the use of electricity, which on hindsight, probably we should have. But we were successful in what we did. We delivered electricity to all of them. But that last part, which is the productive uses, probably should have engaged us a little bit more as part of the project.
If you say productive use, what do you mean by that?
That how do you use the electricity to increase your economic activity, to increase your income, and to increase your well-being? Yes, people will use it to increase their comfort and their pleasure, but the attention has to be paid to productive use of it. And that is where I think, when I look back, that is the shortfall that we should have.
Thinking back on the same region subject, I think last year there were conversations about the instability of power in Kumasi. So the government at the time said they were moving a mandate to the place to stabilize it. Do you think that is enough to stabilize the power in that region?
Well, those who study the national grid say that they need a little more power in Kumasi and it will be ideal. So I don't have a doubt about their competencies. They say that is what they could use. So, yeah.
Okay. So let me take you back to, so after VRA, you transitioned to consultancy.
Yes.
What would you say is the difference working with other country engineers and then working with your engineers in Ghana? Are there any differences when it comes to their power sector as well?
I had the opportunity to work with the engineers from Ontario Hydro. I mean, we were on attachment with Ontario Hydro for several years. And what I learned was that they are no different from us.
Okay.
And some of the things we were doing even at the time, we were ahead of them. But if you are sitting here, you don't know it. It's only when you have gone and rubbed shoulders with them on a day-to-day basis, you come back confident that we are doing fine, we are doing okay. The way we are maintaining our plants, the way we are running our system is amongst the best.
So you said that our engineers are well capable of working?
Our engineers are very well capable, I have no doubt about that. I have seen it for myself. I've tested it for myself, and I'm confident about that. And I think that everybody needs to have that confidence, because once you have seen it, you know that you are doing what you are doing is amongst the best, and you are confident in what you are doing, and you can face them anytime. Yeah.
Are there lessons you learned working as a consultant with the power companies in the other countries that you would love to share with us?
Not really. Luckily for us, most of our neighbors are well behind our stage of development.
Okay.
And last time I was telling someone that if you take the West African sub-region, apart from Nigeria, which is huge and their network is huge, Ghana is the largest. None of the other countries compares. So in working with the other sister countries, you find that probably we are ahead on most fronts. Our size is also such that we are larger, and our experience is higher than most of them. But so it's more of working with them to help them bring them up, and to also avoid what we know to be the mistakes in the way we had done things here.
But what inspired you to go into consultancy? Because I would say that you spend much of your life with VRA. So what inspired you to go into consultancy? Would you say it was an opportunity or a risk that you had to take?
It wasn't a choice per se. I had to leave VRA at short notice, because the government at the time had indicated that the minister called me and indicated that the government didn't feel comfortable working with me.
Okay.
And so they wanted me out. And I had previously made up my mind that if at any time the government didn't want to work with me, I would resign. So I did resign. And so suddenly I had resigned, and I had to find other things to do. So I was forced into private consultancy. But it was smooth, surprisingly smooth for me.
Okay.
Also because what actually happened was that a few months after I left VRA, when I left VRA, I decided to take a break. So I went to Europe, took a break touring Europe, and I came back maybe 2-3 months later, and I got a call. And it was for someone who had worked with me before. And he says, "Oh, we hear that you have become available. Is it true that you have become available?" I said, "Yes, I've become available. I have nothing doing." And he says, "We need you." And this person was from the World Bank.
Wow.
And he had worked with me before, and he knew my work, and that was what was marketing me. So from that time on, I never had a momentary gap. Because then they'll call me and say that we need you to go into Sierra Leone and go and check what is going on and do this for us. And then I'm off to Sierra Leone. The next time I'm off to Liberia. The next time I'm off to Mali, so on. And there was no gap after that. So after a while, then I decided to formalize it with a consultancy. And that is what we have been. So it wasn't a choice. Somebody may have seen it as a difficulty, but it was also an opportunity. And after a while, I was asking myself why I hadn't done this earlier, because it was so financially beneficial to be doing that kind of work.
There are two things you have stated here: making sure that whoever you work with, you leave that mark of doing your work and doing it well. Two is taking up opportunities. So
Yes.
they say that you make good use of the opportunity that you had.
Yes, I think that for those who have prepared well, it becomes an opportunity. I didn't have much of a problem transitioning into the private practice because I had done so much work and had been prepared for this. So it wasn't difficult. But a lot of it depends on how you perceive the difficulties or the trials that come your way, because every one of them is also an opportunity. And like other opportunities that had come up before, with every change, it becomes an opportunity for you to accomplish something else in the new era. At one time, I was suddenly requested to leave the engineering field that I was familiar with in VRA and take up a responsibility as information systems director.
Okay.
And I welcomed it. I got into it, and I studied for it.
Okay.
And I think that I did very well, because in that role as well, that was at the time when the companies were transitioning from the mainframes into the personal computers. And I led the company, VRA, to make that transition, and it was very successful. So what seems to be new, what seems to be difficult, what seems to be uncomfortable, if you welcome it and you embrace it, I think that it becomes an opportunity to accomplish a lot more.
So you're someone that you are not, you do not have fears taking risk or taking up new challenges.
I am not perturbed. I will take on a new challenge. I'll apply myself, and quite often you'll find that you succeed with it.
Okay, the conversation is becoming more interesting. We will come back, and when we come back, we are going to be looking into his life as a chief executive with the Bui Power Authority, the whole story behind the Bui Dam. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to AEA Insight. I'm still here with Engineer Jabesh Amissah-Arthur, and we're going to continue the conversation from he being a consultant and finding his way back into the public sector. So, Engineer, we're done with your consultancy. You found your way back to the public sector as the CEO of the Bui Power Authority. You had a major project to execute because there was a lot of conversation about the Bui Dam. How was it for you, knowing very well that you were going to start something which was not new in the sector though, but it was a major thing for you?
It was a real major undertaking, especially given the circumstances of it. But I was not discouraged at all. I knew that I could do that job, and I could do it well, because I had been part of the construction of the Pond Dam from 1980 to about 1984, 85. I had worked on the construction of the Pond Dam, and I had stayed back on the Pond Dam to operate it for probably 3-4 years before I left. So I knew what it takes to do dam construction, and so I wasn't disturbed about that at all. Luckily, we had good people at the site. The challenge was that this was the first time it was going to be supervised by an entirely Ghanaian team.
Okay.
And I was convinced that we could do it, that we had the same skills as all our colleagues anywhere else, and with the right exposure, we could do it. So my focus was on how to lead that entire Ghanaian team of engineers to successfully supervise the project and get it accomplished. And so it was interesting. It was challenging. It was a difficult environment, but we were able to do it. When you step back and you look at what has been accomplished, it is overwhelming. And it's another one of the achievements that I'm really proud of, myself and the team.
What were your major challenges executing such major projects?
There were a lot of challenges. Some of them you had learnt about, how to get that project organized. You see, I had been part of Akosombo, operating it earlier on, and you had learned the lessons and the difficulties that came with Akosombo and the way it was implemented. I was part of the POM project, so we had learned lessons from the POM project, what happens when you do this, when you do that, and so on, and especially with the communities. What happens with the resettlement and so on and so forth. And so we had learned all those lessons, and I was convinced that we could implement Bui in a way that avoids all of the challenges that and the difficulties that have come up in these two earlier projects. And we were able to do that. Especially, I mean, particularly interesting was the resettlement program and how to go about relocating more than 1,000 people such that they don't have any regrets and such that they don't become, they are not worse off and they don't become a problem that is repeated. What to do about the, Akosombo had problems with the tree stumps and lake transportation, so what to do about those? There were a lot of things, not so much with the engineering itself, but especially with the social and the cultural problems around it and how to solve them. And also staff and settlement problems. You had to learn and deal with that. So it was challenging in that respect. The engineering, if it's a challenge, you always know what to do. It's probably computations and a structured way of resolving it. But for me, the most challenging part was the cultural and the social problems, because there's no handbook for that. There's no formula for solving those. And the way we went about it was to build very close bonds with the communities, very, very close bonds with the communities. Visit them every time, listen to them, what they want to do, what their aspirations are. And what worked for us well was always being honest with them. You tell them what you are going to do, and you do exactly what you have promised them you do. When you can't do something, you are forthright with them and explain to them why you can't do that. And I remember that we had to, for instance, build a paper model of the houses we are going to build with them. And then when the architect builds a model, he painted it in a certain color. And I told him that when we go and we are going to show this model to the project affected people. When we do that, you are going to have to paint the buildings the same color you have of this model, okay? And so that's what we did. To that extent, that amount of detail, that when you show the communities that this is the building I'm going to build for you, the color and everything have to be exactly what you told them you are going to do. And once they went there, they called me and said, Chief, you built exactly what you said you were going to build. And that solves a problem, because you did what you said you were going to do. You've given them what you promised them you will give them. And then there was no problem. So it was very satisfying to see that was a resettlement program that had gone on without a hitch. No hitch at all.
In your tenure, did you do any spillage?
No, we did some spilling during the construction, because every flood season you have to flood. So we always had to come up with creative ways of how to discharge the excess water and so on. We did do that. And when we have finished the plant, we had to do a testing of the spillway. So we did some spilling, but not on a scale to us to protect the dam, no.
During your tenure as well, did you run dry? Did you have low water levels for the dam?
With Bui, you always have to manage.
Okay.
We always have to manage your draft rate, because the units are so many and so big, 400 megawatts. They can discharge all the water you have in the dam within X months if you don't manage it. So you are always managing it so that you don't overdraft too early. But the units are big, and they can discharge all the water in a couple of months if you let them go full blast.
Is that something you did as a CEO uniquely that made you so different?
Well, we had to influence the designs. We had to influence the design. By the time I got there, the standard designs had been done, but at least we were able to influence the designs to introduce what we call the mini turbinette, which is a small turbine of 4 megawatts that can run throughout the year. to provide some of the needs. That arrangement was entirely new and it came from myself and my team. Because what they were going to do was to just have a bottom outlet that can be open to drain the reservoir. And we said, no, we'd be better off having it such that we could generate 4 megawatts with it. And we were successful in doing that. The contractor was also cooperative, and he provided the turbines for a little additional money.
This is a difficult question. You are a technician. So how were you able to manage your job as a CEO without having too much influence from the policymakers?
I think that it's the same approach that I'd used with the communities and the community leaders, to be forthright and to be frank.
Okay.
So people have expectations of you. They have aspirations for the authority you are leading. And so they will urge you to do things. Where you can do it, you are forthright and say, yes, okay, if I had this and this and this, I think that I can do this, I think we can do this, and you do it. When you say you are going to do it, you do it. And once people know that if you can do it, if it's possible for you to do it, you will do it. When the next time you tell them, say, this is not possible, they listen to you. They know that if you could do it, you would have done it. And there are times that you have to tell the person, no, if I do it this way, it will bring trouble. So don't let me do it this way. Leave it with me. I'll find a workable way that will achieve the same result. You tell him that, I know that what you want to do, for instance, is to get supply to this community, but the proposal you have brought, we can't do it that way. Let me figure out how we can do it. And if I come up with a good solution, I'll come back to you and we'll do it that way. And then they are willing to leave it for you to consider, think through it, the approach that want to be adopted, and you go forward with it. You have to be skillful. You can't, it is right for your superiors, for your ministers, for the head of state and so on, to want your organization to be doing certain things. That is fair, that is proper. You have to be skillful in how to support the valid aspirations they have for your organization. But you have to know how to do it and where not to do it, and how to convince them that let's do it this way, let's not do this, let's do that, let's not do that. That is for you to manage, and that is the challenge that you have to meet.
If you look at the power sector currently, do you think there's anything more we could do to improve our power sector?
There's a lot to be done to improve. I think that it's no secret that the sector's finances are not in a good place. There's a lot we could do. There's a lot we could do in structuring the sector for long-term sustainability and financial credibility. And we have to do that because the path we are on now is not sustainable. We can't have utilities going to central government for financial support every so often. No, it's not sustainable. And so we have to find a way to cut out, to reduce our losses, to improve our efficiency, and to make sure that the sectors and each utility is financially healthy. That is the only way to go forward. Because what is happening now, no government has a deep enough pocket to be able to continue subsidizing these electricity utilities forever. And so they have to be on their feet.
Would you call for privatization of ECG?
Private participation will have a purpose. And that purpose is to improve the efficiency. If you are convinced that the public sector can be made to be efficient, then you have an obligation to try that. Because there are also concerns about private sector participation, especially when it's for foreign entities as well. But the fact is that we have operated this electricity system for 50 plus years, and we have to get to a point where it is financially healthy. There's discipline, there has to be discipline, there has to be efficiency. If the public sector is proving that it still cannot get its act together, then probably the only way is to bring in private participation, reluctantly. If that is the only way to get the sector to be efficient and financially healthy, then we don't have a choice.
In your opinion, what skills do you think any person who is aspiring to lead in public sector or private sector would need to be able to be successful?
There are a few things. I think that one, the person has to know intimately the business that he's managing. You have to know the insides of the business that you are managing to understand what makes it tick, to understand what wouldn't work in that industry. Then two is people who are going to determine whether you are successful or you are not. So managing people, motivating people is the biggest thing. If you have a good team and you are not able to manage or motivate them to accomplish what you are doing, you are not going to be successful. So those are I think the two most fundamental of skills that you have and knowledge that you need. One, you need to know the business, you need to know what makes it tick, you need to know what makes it go wrong, or what works and what doesn't work in that business. And two, the skills for managing and motivating the workforce. I have one of the things that I was told, or the general perception was that if you are a consultant supervising a project, for instance, that you always have to confront the contractor. That if you don't confront the contractor, you are not going to get well. But I don't believe in that philosophy.
Okay.
Because your success as a project manager depends on the contractor accomplishing his work.
Yeah.
So how to collaborate with him, how to motivate him, how to encourage him such that he can deliver, how to work with him so that you can overcome the obstacles that the project faces is what you have to do. I don't believe in the confrontation part of it. I've heard also, there was a time in my career when there was an HR manager who was talking about not listening to the union representatives and so on, that I won't talk to them, they are too something, I won't talk to them. And I called him aside and told him, look, you are the HR manager. You have to talk to the union and the union leaders.
Yeah.
If the rest of the company, if the director of engineering doesn't want to talk to the union, he's okay, that's not his work. You, as the HR manager, that is your work.
Yeah.
And you cannot go about it with the confrontational attitude the other directors are having. So I sincerely believe in talking to the opposing side or sides that are perceived as opposing and working with them to get the work accomplished.
Have you ever worked with any person who you would term as lazy or laid back on the job? And how did you go about it?
Well, there are some people who by nature are laid back.
Okay.
There are sometimes roles that require that kind of attitude.
Okay.
But in most of the roles, you can't survive with that. There are very few roles where a laid-back person can perform. So then what I try to do generally is to fit people, the individual personalities of the staff I have, to the roles that have to be performed. For instance, there can be somebody who's naturally inquisitive. If you have the skills, you'll be a perfect person to be in an audit role. So such a person, I'll try to move you to an audit role. There are people who have naturally people-loving and chatting with people and so on. That aptitude aligns them to certain roles. There are people who are good with numbers. There are good and people have different personality traits. And I think that one of the important duties of a leader is to be able to study the people in the team, their personality kinds, and then try to fit them to roles where they naturally perform. And once you get that right, you see that people blossom in those roles.
Yeah.
And you don't just take anybody and stick him anywhere because he has a qualification or something. You have to look at his personality and whether the role you are giving him fits that personality. If it does, you have a winning team member.
If you look back at your service at VRA and at Bui, is there something you would have done differently if you were given an opportunity again?
Well, if I was to do things again, I'll probably pay a little more attention to succession planning.
Okay.
And how I would have wanted to study what happens in an organization and therefore better prepare the organization for the succession. Yeah, that is one area that I would have done differently, because I think that I like to think that whilst I was in the post, some of these things were running well, but then what happens after your departure is one that I should have probably paid a little more attention to, or that I paid some attention to it. I thought that we were doing things in a way that will allow the organization to progress, but it didn't work as expected.
If you look at the two organizations now, do you think that where they are, it's as an expert, do you think that where they are currently is good enough?
I think that they could be better off. I think that they could be far better off. There are things that, for instance, there are long-term visions that we had for some of these organizations that probably we'll say they've dropped the ball. For instance, when I was at VRA, it was a conscious decision to increase local content in the engineering work we were doing. So if you look carefully, you'll see this. When Akosombo was being built, we brought Canadians to lead the team. But by the time we got to Pong, we insisted that local people would lead the operation because we had sufficient experience in the operation. When we were doing the extension of the grid to the north, there was a long debate between management of VRA and the World Bank.
Okay.
The World Bank wanted to bring foreign consultants to supervise the work. VRA management said no. We have engineers who are capable of supervising the work. We don't need foreigners. It was a long debate. In the end, the compromise was that instead of bringing a whole foreign company, they'll send two foreign individuals to work with us, and that was it. And we will supervise the project ourselves. It was a conscious decision that after every project, we'll increase the local content. We'll increase what we are doing. And we were successful in doing that. I look back and now I see, after a certain time, when I see transmission projects where VRA has engaged foreign consultants, I'm saying, why?
Okay.
This is going backwards of what we were trying to do and where we had gotten to. We had reached the point where we were doing our own transmission designs and doing our own supervision, and it had been accepted. So why are you going backwards? So there are some of those things. Next, in another 2 years or 3 years, Bui project will be 20 years.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had started with the Bui project was that we were planting mahogany forests. And the experts had told us that mahogany takes 18 years to mature. so that after 18 years, you will be harvesting the mahogany and preparing them for an export. And we were planting 5,000 mahogany trees a year, 5,000. And so the vision was that by year 18, which is next year, or by year 20 at the latest, we'll be harvesting 5,000 mahogany trees a year from the Bui project. And the computation was that the export of that mahogany will bring more money to the company than the electricity that is generating. So after 20 years, supposing you didn't even increase the 5,000 and you stayed at 5,000 every year, BPA will become a wood company.
Wow.
More than an energy company. But I'm not sure if they are ready to do that, because that was the vision. And I'm not sure that that vision has been carried forward.
But did you start the planting?
Certainly. Certainly, we started the plantation. You go there, you see the plantation had been started.
Did you have to deal with galamsey also in the Bui area?
Some amount of galamsey has started. But in fact, what we did was to encourage the Ghana Army to bring a contingent that is located and hosted by BPA at the site in order to curtail that. But they were doing galamsey in the areas outside the acquisition area. Yes.
Okay, so we're bringing our conversation to an end. There's a whole lot to get from you, but time is not on our side. If a young engineer was watching us, what would be your advice to them?
Let's say two things that I'll say to him. One is the one I've talked about to you. As a professional, you have to pay attention to the reputation you build for yourself.
Yeah.
That reputation will either promote you or it will sink you. And I was lucky that the introduction I got, it made me aware of the reputation that I had to build in order to be successful. And it did help me out. Whenever I was in difficulty, it will help me out. It will bail me out. That is one. And as a professional, the other thing that I told myself was that no person can destroy a professional unless the professional decides to subvert himself. One of it's very clear in my mind. When I joined the Pong team in the construction, there were many of my colleague engineers who were before me who had been sent overseas for training. Some had gone to Australia for months. Some had been to Sweden. VI actually sent them out to prepare them for the project. I joined them late, so I didn't have the opportunity. But those people had brought back all the manuals, and I dedicated myself to reading and learning all the manuals from cover to cover. And I did learn them all. I knew them to the extent that at a certain point, I would get into arguments with those who had gone overseas for the training. And when we went and opened the book, I was right, they were wrong. And that was part of establishing my reputation and making me confident in what I was doing. So if you're a professional and you learn your work, you don't learn. When you learn, what I always told myself, when I learn, it's for myself. The knowledge is in my head. Nobody can take it away from me. When you build a reputation, it's for yourself. The reputation goes ahead of you. There were times that I've gone somewhere and somebody say, "Oh, you are Jabesh. I've heard about you." Oh, say, was it good or bad? Or you are entering an interview. Let me tell you a funny story. Part of why I focused on making sure that my reputation amongst my colleagues and those who were near me was always right. There was, when I was young, I was going on trek, and we went on trek to somewhere. I think it was to Prestia, to go and do some work. We were there for probably 3 weeks or a month or something like that. And I met one of my old schoolmates, and he was telling me a story that, oh, they were going to employ some engineer from VRA. And then he met this person who was a VRA person. And so he asked that person, how is that engineer? We are going to employ him. Then he said the report that that VRA person gave of that engineer in VRA was so bad that they didn't employ him. The person lost the opportunity just because of what this other VRA person has said. And I asked who the name for that VRA person who gave that report. And when I found out, that person was not an engineer. And he wasn't working in the powerhouse. He didn't himself know the engineer he has spoken about, but it's word of mouth. He had heard his colleagues said, oh, that engineer is not serious. And that's what he passed on to these people at Prestea, and they didn't employ the person. So he told me that it's the person who is telling about you may not even have worked with you, but has heard somebody talk about you. And that's what he's repeating. And that means whether you get a job or you don't get a job. And that is why it was so important to me, and it's so important for a professional to be serious with work and to be known to be competent.
Any advice for our policymakers, since you have so much experience in the power sector?
I think that one of the weaknesses of our policies is that they are not far-sighted enough, unfortunately. And we have to improve our practice and let our policies be far-sighted and look at the benefits for the long term, and not just the near-term solution of a problem or avoidance of the challenge.
Engineer, is that something you do for fun?
Yes, yes.
What do you do?
I like music.
Okay.
I play piano.
Okay.
I play the organ.
Okay.
That's what I do for my spare time.
Maybe one of these days.
When I was younger, I played a lot of tennis and a lot of squash, but these days I can't do that. And so I've switched to playing the keyboard.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us for this episode. We see you for another episode. Thank you.